Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. It's episode 74, recording on Thursday, April 10th. It's cloudy outside, but it's Masters Thursday, so I'm pumped. I've obviously got the hoodie on and have a fun guest for you today. His name is Dane Brugler. He's our draft expert at The Athletic. He just put out on Wednesday a product that he calls The Beast, which is hundreds and hundreds of pages of detailed scouting reports on all of the best prospects. It is as impressive of a project as you'll see around the draft landscape. He puts a lot into it and really cares about doing it the right way and has a lot of contacts within the NFL. So thought, based on that, having now published, and Dane having a feel of what the Vikings may or may not do and having as good of an insight into as many prospects as possible, it'd be great to have him on. And we got into everything, pick at 24, potential trade back and how feasible that might be, certain players that he likes at different positions, some Flores fits later on in the draft. And then I gave him an option at the end, a three-pronged kind of multiple choice route that he would go for the Vikings in this draft. Thought it was very interesting. Think you guys will really enjoy it. Dane's as good as it gets, so I appreciate him hopping on. As always, this show is presented by First Resource Bank. That is a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area. They've got branches all over the place. They got one in Lino Lakes. I don't ever go there. Don't even know where that is because I'm not a Minnesotan through and through, but I'll get there someday. It's a great bank run by really good people who are from this area and who care about the Vikings. So please go check them out. The information is in the description below. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. You can hit the little thumbs up like thing too. You can get notifications for all future episodes. We're ramping up for around the draft. Cannot wait for a couple weeks from today when I am in the TCO Performance Center waiting to see what the Vikings do. It's going to be pretty fascinating, but hitting that subscribe button helps us out. We've had a lot of fun building this show over the last 8 months or so, and we're going to keep rolling. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, you can hit the follow button, and that stuff helps us out as well. But I always appreciate you guys being here. Want to bring you guys as, comprehensive a look at this thing as we possibly can. So that's why we've got Dane Brugler on today. Let's not waste any more time, both because this conversation was awesome and I got to go watch the Masters. Here's episode 74 with Dane Brugler. Dane, thanks for hopping on the show. Been a busy stretch for you probably, but I'm sure the people listening to this and watching it have gotten to see the finished product. I'm just curious to start, how many words was it? Do you know how many words The Beast was in total?
I don't. It was a lot. It was over, 300,000 or so. I can't remember. But I'll tell you the most fascinating thing, and maybe this shows how big it is. We do everything in Google Docs. Well, the first year we've done it that way. It just makes the editing process easier. And at a certain point, we found out Google Docs has a limit on characters. It literally 1 million characters is the limit. And we got maybe 75% through, and we hit the limit. And we're like, what is this? And so we had to divide it. We had a separate Google Doc for offense, a separate Google Doc for defense, and we had to do it that way. But yeah, it was kind of fascinating. I never knew that Google Docs had a limit on characters, but we found that out doing The Beast.
That's unbelievable. I've had feature stories where I've got all my transcripts and it's 80 pages. So I just assumed it went on forever. Apparently not.
Right.
It's pretty unbelievable. But again, and I said this before we recorded, it's a very impressive project. I don't know how much time. I know how much time goes into it, probably an ungodly amount. But want to have you on to talk some Viking stuff. Their situation, as the people listening know, is pretty interesting. I kind of assumed before free agency that coming out of free agency, I'd have a pretty good feel of the route that they'd go at number 24, and obviously they could still trade back. But it felt like positionally it was going to be pretty obvious. Then they shore up the interior offensive line they with Brian Kelly and Will Fries. Interior defensive line, they signed Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave. So it's kind of up in the air. People ask me if I have a lean. I'd probably say to this point, the interior of the offensive line is where I am. But how have you just thought about where the Vikings might go at 24, or just positionally, what comes to mind for you when you think about Minnesota?
Well, and it's interesting with what they did in free agency, addressing the trenches in a big way on both sides of the ball. And so, okay, does that mean we should look elsewhere, whether in the secondary or do we look at it and say, well, they're not done in terms of adding talent up front, offensive and defensive lines. And, I keep coming back to how it can be tough to know who's going to be there. Does Gray Zabel make it past the Seahawks and the Bengals and some of those teams in front of the Vikings who could be looking at interior offensive line? I keep coming back to two because I'm actually working on my 7-round mock draft right now, which will be up next week.
You needed some more work, so I'm glad that you
squeeze every little bit out of this. Yeah, and I keep coming on two Texas players. Kelvin Banks, the offensive lineman, who was a left tackle. I actually like him better at inside at guard. I think it's where his best fit will be. But, he has that tackle guard versatility. And then also Jedi Barron, the corner, who, we know with Brian Flores and that system and, the way he likes to use safeties, and a guy like Barron who is versatile. Well, some teams view him as versatile. Some teams think he's a nickel only. Some teams think, okay, he can play outside corner, inside corner, a little bit of safety, whatever you want. So we don't know exactly how they feel about Barron, but I think theoretically he could be a potential fit in what they like to do. So I keep coming back to those two Longhorns. But yeah, it feels like there's a lot of different directions they could go.
Yeah, I think those two names that you mentioned are spectacular. I know they had people down in Austin for the pro day. They've monitored those two guys specifically. I know that for certain. Barron, for me, had Byron Murphy Jr. not been extended and re-signed with the Vikings for multiple years, like he probably would have. It would have been hard for me not to believe that'd be the route, because to your point, I mean, I do think you know more than I do on what people feel from his versatility standpoint, but ball skills, like I think the short area stuff, just kind of fearless, competitive, has done it at that level. And then Banks, I mean, from an age perspective, he kind of aligns with their approaches in the recent past, where they go kind of younger, Power 4 conference, guy with upside. So, I mean, he's an interesting player. And I had Brandon Thorne on my podcast earlier this weekend. We didn't talk a ton about Banks, but it sounds like you feel like guard could be the best kind of long-term answer for him.
Yeah, that's how I feel. And teams are kind of split. I would say it's almost like 50-50 based off of who I've talked to in the league, seeing him as a tackle and as a guard. I think there are some balance issues there. I mean, you watch the Michigan tape, and it's like, all right, well, why are you on the ground so much? You watch him on the Georgia tape, same type of thing. But, he's a really good player, and he's been a starter there he was a starter at Texas since he showed up as an 18-year-old freshman. And he was a freshman All-American last year as a sophomore, and then this past year as a junior. And so 42 starts in 3 years, cleaned up on the award circuit. Like, there's a lot to like about this player, no doubt about it. But it's just, okay, does he have what it takes to stay outside full-time against NFL edge rushers? That's where it gets a little murky. But I think kicking him inside, where he's very controlled with his footwork, you see the depth of how he plays and how he understands to use that anchor, leverage blocks, use his hands. He's very good at understanding how to use just the biomechanics of his body, so he can get underneath guys and be in the right position to either get the guy blocked, or be, if you're going to get into a compromised position, he can get himself out of it. So yeah, with Kelvin Banks, I think I never saw him as like that top 10 guy. Like a lot of people would mock him in the top 10. I just never saw him that high. But we're talking late first, in the bottom third of the first round. I think it makes a ton of sense for several teams. The Rams are a possibility. There's a couple teams in the 20s where you could see Kelvin Banks being a potential target.
Yeah, the other thing with Banks having played tackle is, I mean, Brian O'Neill, who's been the Vikings right tackle, and the Vikings absolutely love him. I mean, just in Palm Beach at the owners' meetings, and Kevin O'Connell spent probably 5 minutes at one instant just raving about Brian O'Neill, who is a captain. He is one of the leaders internally, but his contract, I believe, only goes through the end of this upcoming season. It might go through 26, but they'd probably have to readjust with just somewhere the cap hits are. So you almost imagine, right now left guard isn't fully set. Could he play left guard in the immediate, then potentially slide out to right tackle in the future? Like, to me, that's where that type of player would be interesting. I mean, because we're on the subject, like, how do you kind of feel about Tyler Booker, Donovan Jackson, kind of by comparison to Zabel and potentially Kelvin Banks? Like, how do you kind of stack that group? How do you feel about those other two guys? For me, Tyler Booker, I mean, you probably know this. Brandon and I talked about it. Like, I'm an Alabama guy, so I know, and I know some people on that staff. I know how much like they kind of rave about him and what he meant and means from a leadership perspective. But I almost wonder, does he fit in the Vikings system if they're still going to run some of their zone stuff? Just Donovan Jackson, Tyler Booker, by comparison to Zabel and Kelvin Banks, where is your head at with really all four of those guys?
Yeah, and there's different types of guards, right? I mean, there's different, depending on the scheme that you run, what you want out of your guard. Because Tyler Booker is wildly different than Gray Zabel in terms of the way they play, some of the movement skills. Booker is just tough because the testing was so below what you ideally want at the position, but then you throw on the tape and you're like, all right, I'm sold. This guy's going to be a Pro Bowl player. So it's like, okay, do zone heavy teams, the wide outside zone, are they going to look at this and say, we like the player, we just don't feel like he's going to be a fit for us, and so it's going to eliminate those teams, and so we're only looking at gap schemes or teams that lean that way. And if that's the case, then does Tyler Booker fall out of the first round because of that? It's certainly on the table as a possibility. But no, I agree with exactly everything you said in terms of just the intangibles. I mean, this is a guy that since the fifth grade, every decision he has made has put him in position to be here and be on the doorstep of the NFL. The way because he grew up in Connecticut, but went to school in New Jersey for a year because that was the best thing for his football career. Then he goes to IMG. Then he goes to Alabama, and it's just decision after decision. And it's funny. I told the story on the Athletic Football Show, but for those that didn't hear it, I had a scout compare him to. He said he's a better teammate than Roland Steele. And I'm like racking my brain. I'm like, I've been doing this a long time. Like there are so many names rattling around up there. I don't remember Roland Steele, and I feel like I should. And then like after 5-10 minutes, it finally came to me. Roland Steele was the guy in Rudy who put the jersey on the desk in front of the coach and said, "Give Rudy my spot, coach." And I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense now.
You've evaluated 700 players for this draft, and that's phenomenal.
I'm like getting mad at myself. Like, shoot, I should know this. I should know who Roland Steele is. And then, I mean, heck, I love 90s movies. If it's not the draft, 90s movies are kind of my jam. So I eventually figured it out. But it goes to what you're speaking about with the intangibles and the leadership and all of that. Gray Zabel he's interesting, and who. You thought like mid-season, like my top 50 came out around Halloween, and Zabel made the cut. And at that point, it was kind of like, oh, wow, an FCS player's on there. And just throughout the process, he has inched up and up and up. And the Senior Bowl is really a big boost for him because he was a left tackle at North Dakota State, moved inside. This is a underwhelming center class. And that's why I actually have him ranked as a center. I think that's where his best position could be. But he could play guard, no problem. But in terms of movement, and you want a guy that's fluid and rangy and has that athleticism, that's definitely Gray Zabel with the way he moves around it there. And he's tough, he's physical. So I think he'd be a great fit in Minnesota. It's just, okay, is he still going to be there at 24? Or are we going to see a team like Seattle at 18 take him, or one of these other teams? I think it's more of a question of, will he get to the Vikings more so than do they like him? Yeah.
I mean, the other thing too, and I mean with with Zabel, there is the North Dakota State. You know, I think he's from South Dakota. You got a lot of people up here who like that one, but he's a name. I mean, I mean, Senior Bowl. I remember watching coverage where, I mean, it sounded like he just had a heck of a week down there. And I mean, last year the Vikings obviously did not end up with this player, but Quinyon Mitchell had a phenomenal Senior Bowl, and I really think the Vikings loved him. It just obviously it didn't work out that way. I kind of want to flip over to the other side, interior defensive line. I mean, it's interesting to try to line up a player who Brian Flores, you know, that just fits perfectly for this system because they've played so interestingly the last couple years, and a lot of their personnel, I mean, their interior defensive line personnel have been guys who are more two-gappers, run stoppers, whereas I feel like they have trended and are trending, given the personnel they've added, to more of like a one-gap type style. But Brian Flores also loves moving guys around on the front. So it's like, who fits that type of system from a character perspective and all those aspects? Who fits the style? Like, when Brian Flores in Miami took Christian Wilkins, who, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but it just sounds like from a character perspective, the guy just blew I mean, things off the charts. And so, like, what's Derrick Harmon's fit? I mean, Walter Nolan, certain guys. I wanted to ask specifically about Derrick Harmon because he's an interesting player. I mean, the PFF numbers with him are spectacular in terms of win rates and everything. But just like, what would you think about the fit of Derrick Harmon here with Brian Flores?
I'd love it, and I think it'd be great for the player and great for the team in terms of overall fit. And one thing that you love about Harmon is just the versatility. I mean, you want to line him up as a one technique, you want to line him up as a shaded nose, he can do that. But he can also be the 3 or be a 5, and I think that versatility gives you a wide range of options about how to best use a player like this who is an athletic big man. I mean, he is every bit of 6'4.5", 315 pounds. And the athleticism, he had under 5 seconds in the 40. The way he moves and how disruptive he can be, it just jumps off the tape. And I remember early in the season, because I knew of him from Michigan State, and he transferred to Oregon, and I knew how much Oregon gave him in NIL money. And I was like, okay, that has my attention. And then watching him early in the season in September, it was like, okay, watching him against Boise State, watching him again, and in every single tape, it's like, all right, they can't block him. Like, he is consistently in the backfield. Now, he needs to be a better cleanup guy. I mean, he missed so many tackles in the backfield, but just the fact that you're affecting the backfield action, I can work with that. Give me those guys who hate to be blocked and find ways to affect the pocket, and Harmon consistently one of those guys. So really, I mean, we're talking about concerns. There's some sloppiness on his body. He needs to get, you know, he was trim at the combine, and at the pro day he put back on 10 pounds. And so just staying trim, staying conditioned so he can play all these snaps. I think, you know, that's maybe the concern there. But as long as he's locked in, yeah, this guy to me is a top 20 pick all day. And so if he's there at 24, I mean, you have, I think he'd be a perfect fit with the Bengals at 17, the Steelers right there in front of the Vikings. So if he's able to get through those landmines, I think that'd be a home run for Minnesota.
Yeah. I mean, and it's similar to Zabel. It's like, will some of the guys who I think are good fits and that the team likes, will they get there? And if they don't, then how do you adapt from that aspect? I mean, that's where, I mean, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has shown that he is not willing to trade down 2022 or trade up, really, frankly, after last year with Dallas Turner. But 2022, they trade down from 12 to 32. There were other trade downs in that draft, and Vikings fans are probably, their stomachs are turning a little bit from it. But I mean, for me, a question that I would ask you, because you just have had more conversations around it, like, how many teams do you feel like will be willing to trade up in this draft? Because we've here locally talked about, could they trade down? Well, what would that mean? Could they trade back to 30 with the Bills, which is a team that's traded around in the first round a lot? Could they trade back to 33 if the Browns wanted to jump up and snag a quarterback, and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has a relationship with Andrew Berry? Just I mean, do you feel like trading down is going to be feasible at that spot? Why or why not?
I think it's a possibility. Now, I think there's a good chance teams are going to look at the players available, especially if Zabel's off the board, Harmon's off the board. There's a good chance they're going to look at who's available at 24 and say, it's pretty similar to the guy we think we can get at 33 or wherever that may be. And I was just talking on a Patriots podcast about the possibility if they go left tackle at 4, using because they have 2 third-rounders, using one of those thirds to package with the second to go up to 24 or 25 to get an Emeka Ibuka or get that pass catcher for Drake May. So I think there will be potential for some moves, and I'm interested to see because this class, let's throw the quarterbacks out of it. It's a very average class. I think there's really good depth in terms of second round, third round, fourth round, especially at certain positions like running back, defensive line, and those things. But overall, it's not as strong of a class as we've seen in the last few years. So I wonder, are we going to see, and I was talking about this with a scout about, are we going to see more or less trades because of that? More trades because the asking price will be a little bit less, or fewer trades because teams just aren't willing to give up those second-round picks, third-round picks, fourth-round picks this year because they could theoretically be starters. So I think it will be interesting just if we see more trades or fewer trades this year in the first round. I think you can make a case why it would be either way. I think I'd probably go fewer, but I think in that late first round, whether it's a team looking to go up and get Shedeur or Jackson Dart or whoever it may be, I think, there's definitely potential for some of those trades in the back third of the first round.
One of the things you mentioned in the Beast on kind of like the team pages, which I thought was really astute by you, which is the Vikings have kind of transitioned from taking a ton of elite testers to being a little more concerned with aptitude, with scheme fit, kind of instincts. And it's something when even talking to people internally, they have verified that has been a very it's been an approach. It's been a targeted kind of plan for them, and I think probably a lot of it is just moving past the 2022 draft. But paired with that thought, I mean, I as I think about a lot of these players and I read the Beast and just try to watch them film myself, I'm always trying to think about which guys fit the Flores defense because it is such a versatile, interchangeable, type of system. And so, I mean, the question to you is, are there later round guys either at safety, at corner, potentially even on the interior defensive line if they don't draft early that you feel like are Flores guys? And I mean, when I think corner secondary, I often think instincts, ball production, high level of competitiveness with corner, sometimes length, interior defensive line. Brian Flores always says, I want big guys who move like little guys. He always has said that, just stuck with me. So I don't know if there are names there that come to your mind, but I'm always trying to kind of operate in that realm, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And, I think this defensive line class is so loaded that if you were the Vikings and you've seen what you did in free agency, you feel like, okay, I can wait till the third round, fourth round and still feel good about some of the potential defensive tackles we have at that spot. Jamari Caldwell from Oregon, the other Oregon defensive tackle, who, by the way, is another great story. I've heard of JUCO guys and I've heard of walk-ons. You rarely find the walk-on at JUCO, and that's where Jamari Caldwell was. So, that's a cool story. But, he's one of those, because he was a 3 technique at Houston, and then he goes to Oregon, they can make him more of a nose, more of a 1 technique. So another guy with versatility, at least in his background, and can move a little bit. CJ West from Indiana, another one. So, and you can wait until probably the 4th round maybe to get one of those guys. I think one of the players I think will really fit a Brian Flores defense, Noel Williams, the corner from Cal, who is a junkyard dog at the position. And he reminds me actually a lot of Cam Bynum, who another Cal former defensive back who was a corner coming out, wasn't quite fast enough, moves to safety. And with Noel Williams, that was kind of the question was, okay, he's physical. Talk about ball production. I mean, he led the ACC in interceptions with 7 last year. It's, okay, will he be fast enough? Well, he ran a 4.50 at the combine. And so it's like, all right, well, for most teams, check that box. That's good enough. but I think he brings some versatility where you can line him up outside or you line him up inside. He can play a little bit of safety. He's physical enough to play in the box. Go back, watch the Stanford tape, and watch him and Alec Aomanor go battle one-on-one the entire game. I mean, it's almost like every snap, one of them was on the ground. And it was just fun to watch. It was like watching WWE or something. But he's got that mentality, and I think the versatility, along with the ball skills, that I think fits Brian Flores perfectly.
That's a heck of a name, and one I have heard around here. So I mean, yeah, you do the job you do as well as you do for a reason. I'll get you out of here with this. I'm gonna give you three options at 24. You pick the one that you would take, okay? Not the one you think they're going to take, the one that you would take having evaluated these guys. All right, here are the three options. First, you stick at 24 and draft Zabel or Harmon if they are there. Second option, trade back to 33, pick up an early third that potentially allows you to get a Noel Williams / defensive tackle, and then at 33 you could still get a Tyler Booker or Donovan Jackson. And then the third option, we didn't talk a lot of safeties here, but let's say Zabel or Harmon are off the board, the Vikings are iffy elsewhere, so you take either Starks or Eman Worry, and then try to get interior offensive line, interior defensive line later. Is one of those does one of those hit your ear more than the others, knowing that the Vikings only have 4 picks in this draft?
Right. Exactly. And that's exactly where I was going. I think it would be tough to pass on Eamon Worry or Malachi Starks, and both those guys are top 20 players in this draft. But I think I would take the trade back option and feel good about the offensive lineman I'm getting. Then also feel good because I think I'm adding another starter with that third round pick that I'm adding, whether that's a corner or defensive tackle. So give me, even though like this draft's going to get beat up because it's not a great first round draft necessarily. But second round, third round, fourth round, there's really good depth. And so I think give me those picks. Give me an extra third rounder. That'll be a starter for us. And I feel pretty good about leaving the draft with someone I still like at 33 and one of those guards, but then adding another starter. I like that fit a lot.
Sweet. Good job. Appreciate it, Dane. Thanks for hopping on the show. I mean, I don't need to tell you this again, having told you pre-show and over direct message on the company channels, but it's a heck of a product, and I know you put a lot of time in it and care about it, so I have the utmost respect for it. Thanks for hopping on. We will stay in touch as this thing gets closer to the draft. Appreciate it, Dane. And that'll do it for our conversation with Dane Brugler. I thought his note and mention of Noel Williams, the cornerback from Cal, was exceptional as always, which I said in the podcast. But appreciate you guys being here. Hope you enjoyed that conversation. Any thoughts that you have from it, I'd love to see in the comments section. Anything that stood out to you, any perspective that you have. I mean, I love the interactions, and comment section on YouTube is a great place to do that. If you're watching there, please hit that subscribe button. It helps us out. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts, you can follow and like and do all those fun things over there. We'll be back next week with at least a couple episodes. I enjoyed that live stream Wednesday night. If you missed that, that's on the YouTube channel and podcasted. Also had a mock draft on Thursday at The Athletic based on Dane Brugler's The Beast. I'm going to put the link for that in the description below, which I should have said at the top. But that'll do it for episode 74. First round of the Masters is underway, probably as this is getting posted. So I'm going to go watch that and enjoy this fun April weekend. We will talk to you guys very, very soon.